What's up guys, Zudo here. Today I want to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, startups. So this video is going to be about how to get a job at a startup. So a quick background about me. I've worked at 3 startups at this point. I'm currently at one as the head of my department. We're about 10 people and we've had a seed round so far.
Nice.
In undergrad, I worked at a startup in the healthcare technology space as an intern, and when I graduated school, I was able to work as a contractor at another startup for a year on the marketing and sales team. If you're interested in building something and having equity, being able to wear multiple hats in a job, not working, the most boring 9-to-5 possible, this video might be for you because I think startups are really fun. You might take a lot more risk working at a startup, but when you're young, I would rather take that risk than live, somewhat of a boring life. I'm not saying that, working a 9-to-5 at a bigger company is the most terrible thing in the world. I think that's very cushy job for some people. A lot of my friends work in banking or software in massive corporations, and that it works for them. They're able to go home and pursue their passions. But I think that working at a startup is so great because I am able to wear multiple hats. I'm learning things that I would never have at a larger company at the age that I'm at. I'm actually being able to build equity by getting options in this company, and maybe if the company blows up, make some money out of that. I don't know, we'll see.
It's free real estate.
Quick background, this video is not specifically talking about getting a job as a programmer or software engineer. I want to specifically talk about getting a job at a company in the marketing, sales, business, or operations side of a company. That is my expertise. I am currently in marketing, sales, and growth, part of my company, and that's the roles that I've had in the 3 startups that I've worked at. But let's start off with number 1, which is you need to read daily. Specifically on startups, I read things like Crunchbase News, AngelList, Hacker News, and Product Hunt. Depending on the industry, there might be more specific blogs for that niche. AngelList, Crunchbase News, and Hacker News kind of run the gamut between, technical news and our products that are being released, all the way to, startups raising a bunch of money and everything in between. There's tons of other resources out there, but these are the ones that I use daily just as checkups to see, what's really happening in the world of startups. Depending on the company that you join, I also encourage you to start reading and learning about startup lingo. I'm on the marketing growth side, so I had to learn about things like ARR, so annual recurring revenue, MRR, monthly recurring revenue, churn rate, which is a more software as a service, it's more of a SaaS thing, but also sales funnels. So I think that everyone in a startup should know their sales funnel, which is, how do they acquire customers, all the way to how do they retain customers, and why do they lose customers? These things are all very important to know. If you're more on the design side of things, I think learning and reading about things like user experience, UX, or user interface design, UI, is really important to understanding how products are built and why that people use products the way that they do. Also user journeys, user flows, understanding how a customer interacts with a product and what are their pain points, what are you trying to solve, all that kind of startup lingo. I'll link some things below to make sure that you have some good resources to start with. So number 2 on how to get a job at a startup is to do projects. So I know this is pretty obvious. You need a portfolio of things to show an employer when you're interviewing, but more specifically getting a job at a startup, you need to show that you can execute.
Execute Order 66.
By execute, I mean that you need to show that on a day-to-day basis you can get things done and get results from these things. By doing projects, I'm not talking about coding websites or coding web apps because this is more on the business side of things. Doing a Craigslist job, graphic design work, or getting a few contracts at a Fiverr or Upwork and showing different funnels that you could build or different analytics tools that you're well versed in. I think that because you need to execute daily at a startup, it's very important to show in a portfolio what you've executed on. And before you ever get a job, you might have to kind of fake it till you make it. You need to show some sort of project where you have built, maybe a marketing campaign, maybe you've designed a fake mobile app, maybe you've built a website. You need to have a story why you built it and how you would acquire customers for that specific, maybe fake company. As an example, I wanted to build a traveling mobile app where people could look at the best restaurants in town when they vacation somewhere. So what I would do is I would build a mock-up UI of this travel web app and put it in an iPhone mock-up. And then I would probably, write some copy, maybe write a newsletter, a couple social media posts on how I would promote that app. And then, if I did end up getting an interview, I would probably present that as part of my portfolio and the different types of hats that I could wear depending on what the startup needed. I think it's important to always be working on something on the side, and it doesn't have to generate income, but maybe using it in your portfolio to try to get a job. It could be very beneficial for you. 3 on how to get a job at a startup is to talk to people. And I know that is pretty basic, just like number 2, but I think that talking to people is very important, specifically for startups, because they are smaller teams. Startups typically have less employees, meaning that you'll be working more closely with colleagues. And I think you need to have built up some soft skills to be able to get a job at a startup. I used resources like AngelList, Meetup.com, and my local business chapter to understand where there were openings in certain companies. If they were going to any trade shows, conferences, or anything on AngelList, I would filter for recently active companies in my area and reach out to the CEO or COO or CTO, whoever is running the ad for the job, and I reach out to them directly and just start a conversation with them. It might be difficult during COVID to go to networking events, but being able to start a conversation with a company that you might be interested in, maybe remotely or in your area, is a really important step to take if you do want to get a job at that company. As an example, the way that I got a job at the current company that I'm at is I was working at another startup. I knew that my contract was ending, and I started reaching out on AngelList to the CEOs of all these companies and just started a conversation. It wasn't an interview, it was just a conversation, where their company was headed, what kinds of resources they needed, what kinds of people they needed to hire. So that's how I got the job at my company. I started a conversation, showed my interest in their niche in their industry. Eventually that led to an interview, which is why I'm here at my current company. I think that these are 3 really solid tips for getting a job at a startup. I know people relate software to startups a lot of the time, but every company needs all the supporting resources like finance, operations, marketing. Now, every company needs to sell a product or service, so I think marketing and sales is a great way to get your foot in the door at a startup. So I hope those 3 tips are very helpful for you. If you want to learn more about getting a job at a startups or how startups actually function, hit the like button and subscribe for that almighty algorithm so that I can put more content out like this. Have a good one. Peace.